All righty, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We could have a moment of silence, please. All righty, I want to thank everybody that's here and everybody that's watching or will be watching. Roll call. Today I'll be starting with Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
Mr. Coverson.
Here.
Mr. Cos.
Here.
Mike Smith here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
All right. Okay, we got a few people wanting to speak. When I call your name, please come up at the podium. Identify yourself. You have 3 minutes. And Karen Fernandez is first. Come on down.
You're the first contestant.
Yeah. Door number 1. Have at it.
All right. Yes, hello. My name is Karen Fernandez. I'm at 16930 McIntyre. And good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So the Grays are requesting another final plat that was recently denied on the basis that this is a 5-acre established neighborhood. Nothing has changed in our existing established neighborhood. We're still 5 acres. It is like saying if we slice the pie this way or that way, it will change, but it doesn't. No matter how you slice the pie, it's still a pie. No matter how many ways they try and change their proposal, take down a barn, move this, change that, this is still about keeping a 5-acre established neighborhood from being split up. We all moved out here knowingly, and we all agreed, including the Grays, that this was 5 acres or more, no less. We do not want our 5-acre established neighborhoods to be sliced up. Joe Herring's neighborhood is 1 acre and 2.5 acres. Maybe the Grays can move over to his neighborhood and leave ours alone. We ask once again that you keep our 5-acre existing established neighborhood as it is. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Tim Porterfield. Good morning.
Good morning. Appreciate the time. Tim Porterfield, 17017 McIntyre Road, directly across the proposed addition. At the previous meeting, there was 4 commissioners, a quorum, I suppose is what you call it, and Mr. Smith wasn't here, and they all voted unanimously to deny this request. And now we're back again. So it was denied for cause, and it was said by a number of commissioners that they're all getting feedback from their different districts about the misapplication of the RR 2.5 as opposed to what the intent was in the comp plan. And it was also said at the meeting that they're undergoing an current update of the comp plan. So in the docket today from Planning and Zoning, they've given you 4 options: 1 to approve, 1 to disapprove, 1 to refuse or revise or modify this request, or remand the case back to the Planning Commission. I respectfully request you stand by your previous decision and deny this application for cause. If you feel you cannot uphold your previous decision, if there's new evidence or new reasoning, I ask you to choose option 4, remand the case back to the Planning Commission until the comprehensive plan is revisited and redone concerning this, especially concerning this issue. Also, Planning and Zoning stated a list of 7 conditions in this, and I read those again, and the number 6 item that says Amy Allison prepared was to remove the driveway on McIntyre. They also need to add in there that ditch needs to be returned to the Kansas statute that McIntyre was designed and built to. Otherwise, we're going to have a flat grass strip. It'll be a no-drive drive. So the watershed report also states an increase of 18% runoff is coming directly onto me. And I'm sure that's my problem according to Kansas, but there's also a road culvert when they designed that road that was sized to the existing flow. So thank you for your time, and please consider carefully the precedent that's going to come out of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Herring. Morning, Joe.
Morning, Commissioners. Joe Herring, Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street. I assume everybody received the email that I sent previous this week, so we're just going to go over that again. This was approved by staff. It was approved by your county planning and zoning, or planning commission on the consent agenda. You approved it unanimously. They meet all regulations of our county. Every plating regulation that's out there, they meet it. This property was rezoned. By doing so, this board stated you have the right to try to replat your property, but you have to meet our regulations. It was actually said it had to come back perfect. It didn't. We tried to save the structure. That was a financial investment. When it was denied last time, it was also said start with a clean slate if you want to do it, and it was also stated that they could do it almost immediately by counselor that day. That's what they've done. They agreed to remove the structure. They agreed to remove the culvert. They agreed to remove the lateral fields and fix it. He has done that with, those are conditions, not exemptions or exceptions. So hopefully this will go forward, give him the assurance, he'll remove everything before the plat is signed and recorded. That all has to be taken care of and agreed to. I appreciate the comments of the neighbors. That's a right to be up here. 5-acre tracts not being split or in a 5-acre area is not a regulation. It has been discussed, but it is not a county regulation that we go by. If we want to change rules on plats, we have to get the regulation changed before we can submit it, much like does the board. The character of the neighbor, when it was rezoned, we had all this discussion. It all went through. The character of the neighbor, you have 2.5 acres, less than a mile to the west. You just redid Emerald Estates a mile to the northwest. You rezoned it, let 13 lots go in there, 2.5 acres. Mile to the north, you have 1-acre tracts, much like the neighbor stated. You have a SUP, you have an RV park. So this character of the neighborhood is mixed. But the key thing to me is we have regulations that we go by. We have to adhere to them. This plat adheres to every one of them. It's his entitled right to do with his property as he wishes, as he sees best, as long as it meets our county regulations, and this plat does. So, here for any questions if you have them.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. All righty. I think that's all the comments come in. So we'll go to administrative business. Mark?
A couple items today, Commissioners. One, I wanted to make sure and note that today is Government Day, I believe, in Topeka. Didn't know if any of you were planning on attending that. Just want to make sure you noticed that. I think
Is that a good thing?
I sent an email out. Well, if y'all go, I want to know. So that might be good. But I sent the email on that out last week. Just want to bring that up. And then the other thing is on administrative business, have courthouse security. We have been working with the 3 vendors who submitted proposals about the courthouse security, and the lowest bidder, we were unable to get a contract that the county councilor could sign off on. And so we did end up just now getting notification that the company Garda was one of the other proposals, that they were willing to amend their contract to reflect what the county councilor had asked for, which is using Leavenworth County as if there were any contractual.
Rather than Delaware.
Yeah, they're based out of Delaware, I guess. So anyways, that we just got notification they did change that and send it over. So because of the timeliness of it, and I know you guys do not have that contract, but I can tell you that I have reviewed it, the county councilor has reviewed it, our building and ground superintendent has reviewed it. I would ask if the board would consider authorizing the chairman to sign that contract for an amount not to exceed $10,000, I believe.
What's the time?
It's a 6 month. It'll be for a 6 month period. That was
Then
the shortest.
according to the sheriff, possible that we'll go back to the
Yeah.
deputies watching.
And that does reflect a savings over what we currently
Okay.
pay. So it's not it doesn't require budget amendment or anything like that. It's just a temporary patch for now.
And I'm sure David, y'all have checked crossed all the T's, not all the I's as far as protecting the county.
The proposed contract submitted by Garda was satisfactory. The only change requested was with respect to jurisdiction. If any actions were to be filed, they've agreed to that. They presented a very favorable contract to the county.
So all the doors will be covered under the,
This is for the courthouse.
right?
And it will cover the 2 security doors.
Okay. And the security guards will be armed?
They're required to be armed by Kansas statute.
Will the doors be manned on like planning commission meetings on the evenings?
We have discussed that, and yes, we are going to ask them to cover our after-hours meetings as well.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
So as far as the hiring of these folks, I assume that all the rules that we observe as far as background checks and all those type of things are required into the contract?
These obviously will not be our employees. It'll be a contracted employee, so they will follow their guidelines for any hiring. And because
As anyone knows, though, anybody can sue anybody. But David, you've looked at this and protected us the best we can.
Your Honor, excuse me.
I've been called a couple other things, but not that, David.
Mr. Chairman, the proposal Garda submitted does not affect the limits of liability that the other proposals contained. It's a very straightforward, I think, very professionally drawn agreement. Garda is a reputable firm. They will be providing armed, licensed personnel. So I believe that Mark's recommendation is favorable, and I encourage you to accept it.
So our assurance will be that they are definitely going to be U.S. citizens and definitely going to be undergoing background checks.
Well, they'll be packing heat, so the answer is yes to all of those.
Right. And background checks for sure?
Absolutely.
and it does require a 30-day startup, so they for training and hiring and whatnot. So it won't be immediately, but within 30 days.
It's pretty good size company anyway. Okay, Commissioners, any other discussion, thoughts?
Ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we authorize the chairman to sign an agreement presented by or approved by county administrator and county counselor for courthouse security.
Second.
For the amount not to
exceed $110,000.
Okay, very good.
And a second.
And a motion, second, any discussion? Okay, I'll start the roll call. Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mark. Anything else, Mark?
That's all I had under administrative business.
Okay, anything from the commissioners before we get started?
Last
Doug.
week we had appointed a new person to the KCATA board, and I was just wondering if we were going to send a letter of appreciation to the Nancy Bowder for the years she spent on that board.
Yeah, there's been rumors or some talk that there was no reason then that except I'd like to have someone in the county. So I think that she did a great job. I think that'd be the right thing to do. We appreciate her doing that. I'm glad you brought that up.
All right.
Does any commissioner have any problem with that?
No.
Okay. Okay. Any other commissioner? All righty, we'll go to the consent agenda. Is there any items on the consent agenda that need to be pulled?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we remove the Gray's Corner case from the consent agenda.
Second.
So
Okay, we have a motion and second to,
you need a motion to approve the consent agenda with that removed.
exactly.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, discussion. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Okay.
Now you need a motion to approve the Grays Corner case number DUV 21-188 and 189.
Have a motion? And this is to approve? Is that what you said, Jeff? I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, to approve it.
Okay.
I'll second it then.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion before we go into discussion? Okay. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Stephen?
We're voting on just put it on the,
We're going to
Well, we
discuss.
discussion.
Discussion, yeah.
yes, aye.
Culberson?
Nay.
Commissioner Cause?
Nay.
Nay. Mr. Smith?
Now, what was the motion?
To approve the Grays
Well, we,
Corner subdivision.
I thought we were going to have discussion.
on
Let's
it.
back up. That was a little-
That's what
that's
I
a little
thought.
confusion.
That's why I was-
Let's
That's
go-
what I thought.
Let's back up on that.
Yeah.
Hold that. Mark, do we need to do anything to back up on that motion?
Well, technically, the motion failed according to the roll call vote that you
So far, there was 3. Yeah.
called, so you can now either move on or you can discuss it.
Discuss it
and
and still go. So we can still go
accept
forward.
another
Okay.
motion.
Mike, just
Well, that was my.
I got you. That's a little confusing. Go ahead. Mike, do you have something?
Oh, well, I just have a couple questions. Probably start out with our planning and zoning. And this kind of the macro, and then we can get down to the micro. But the macro is we have this comprehensive plan, and the plan is that from Leavenworth to Lansing to Baser, and then a reverse L over to Tonganoxie, the plan encourages the development in that area. And as we get closer to some of these cities and urban areas, we're allowing higher density as far as zoning, and that's to allow for the encouragement of the development to come in close to the cities where the sewer lines are and the water lines and all the development. So the macro is that we're trying to follow that when we're doing these zoning and plats. So moving towards this gray issue, it is very much in close proximity to higher density development areas. Is that correct?
So
Under the land use plan?
The comprehensive plan calls for zoning of 2.5 acres along all paved county roadways. That's what was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. That's what was adopted. McIntyre Road is a hard surface road. The comprehensive plan allows for 2.5 acre zoning along such, and that's what was approved with this.
But even more than that, we have, if not that far away from that location, is even higher density, if I recall.
Yes.
Can you
Yes,
reflect on how?
In the comprehensive plan, closer to the cities, we have 3 units per acre future land use. Yes.
And that's not that far from where this is. If I'd have to have a land use map in front of me.
I
but
don't have the map in front of me, and certainly everyone's definition of not that far is different.
Within
but yes,
miles.
within mile and a half.
Yeah.
But again, I don't. have the map.
So when we're talking about, I mean, we're doing a lot of talking about out in the country preserving rural land for trying to keep rural area. But when we get in closer to the city, our plan, the comprehensive plan that we're obligated to follow, and kind of guides and directs us. It's not the Bible, but it guides and directs us. It is in this area calling for a higher density.
Yes, so in this area, the comprehensive plan calls for 2.5 acres. Closer to the city limits, yes, 3 units per acre.
So I just wanted to put that out there before we get into the specific discussion. And then the other thing I was going to ask about is we've talked about this subdivision rule coming into effect that we haven't passed yet, but would this fall into would this fall in if we adopted a rule that subdivisions cannot split? Would this fall into that category?
Technically, no. These lots were not part of an existing subdivision. I realize there is a subdivision across the street. However, these particular lots, while they were split previously, they are not part of a subdivision. They're unplatted tracts of land.
So they would not fall. So even if we made the change we're talking about, this would not fall under that change.
Well, if you said
Technically,
can't
but
split lots and
depending upon.
subdivision.
Well,
I'm sorry, Chris, what'd you say? I couldn't.
So technically, the guidance we've been given is that existing subdivisions would not be allowed. Now, certainly the board can extend that and say, well, this area is with, near an existing subdivision, but these technically would not fall under that because they are not platted tracts of land currently.
Okay.
So we would just need to say 5-acre tracts cannot be split further. So my take on this is a work in progress. The comp plan, the new subdivision regulations, all this. The previous comp plan we hadn't updated for like 20 years. So we took a big step forward, approved getting a new comp plan done, and it's a work in progress. We spent months. There's one whole chapter in the comprehensive plan talks about nothing about other than how we went about surveying and canvassing the neighborhoods and the taxpayers to find out what they wanted. And that's where we've arrived to today. Now, I don't know, there wasn't a whole lot of input on the 5-acre tracts being split further in the original survey. The rezoning of that area to the 2.5 acres, I think, was the catalyst that started this whole conversation about how we've had so many people in 5-acre neighborhoods reach out to us. I know I've heard you guys talking about it too. I know I personally have had a lot of input from people in 5-acre neighborhoods saying, we thought this was going to be a 5-acre neighborhood when we bought it. We thought it was going to stay that way. They agree with my idea of the 2.5-acre splits was more to preserve ag land. If a farmer had a 100-acre tract with an old farmhouse on it, wanted to split that off, we were making him sell 5 acres with that. 2.5 acres, I think, is a lot better idea. So preserving ag land for the 2.5-acre splits makes a lot of sense, but further splitting 5-acre lots or tracts in neighborhoods that are already established as 5-acre neighborhoods, people don't like that. So that's where we're at. We're kind of in between the zoning process and the subdivision process.
And that's why it was so important that we revisit this every year and
Yeah.
make our updates.
Yeah.
And that was going to be the one. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's been over a year. It was October, I believe.
Yeah. But it's a lot closer than 20 years like
October.
they did before.
Yeah, I think so too.
but it's, I just know that we've been allowing this to happen, and then if you all of a sudden come and say, we've been allowing it to happen up to now, and we haven't changed anything in our comprehensive plan, and now we're going to change. That's
Yeah, I think though, Mike, what I'm hearing from Jeff, and I've had a lot of calls, not on this one, but a lot of them, it is a work in progress. I mean, there are some things that we probably need to be discussing on something like that, because of all the things, my year here in the county commissioners, I wasn't here when y'all did the comprehensive plan, even though y'all did need it, believe me, is this 2.5 and this 5 acres. This is what I hear about more than anything. So it'll be up to the commissioners after, I think y'all have another meeting coming up.
Yes, so we have the final work session next Wednesday. Actually,
Okay.
we had a work session, 3 weeks ago, where we invited the public to come out and speak. We had about
Good.
12 people come.
Well, that's not
so
good.
we're taking that to the Planning Commission next week, and then we will bring forward the updated comprehensive plan by March.
Okay.
And that'll be we'll have a final vote then.
Yes, so then
Okay,
it'll
in March.
come before the
Okay.
board for final approval.
This-
So are we planning on reviewing it again next March, or are we going to look at it again next October?
I think we will begin, similar to what we did this year, we will begin the work session process with the board at the end of this year, and then take it to the Planning Commission.
But what we're talking about is really not in the comprehensive plan. It's
Right.
in the subdivision
Right.
regulation.
Yeah,
Right.
At the same time.
yeah. Hey, commissioners, what's your?
Well, I just think that what we are dealing with are unintended consequences that, we didn't have enough foresight to realize when the discussions were taking place. I mean, I won't do I've been opposed kind of all along to doing some of the things that, I've
Yes,
been
you
the
have.
no vote all the way through the whole process. So, but I just think that I think I expressed those concerns early on, And I continue to express the concerns and I want to stand behind the people who, are the most impacted, and that's the people who really did live in a neighborhood that is established. I mean, whether it is a subdivision or not, that when they purchased their land, their 5 acres, because that's the way it was, perhaps they should not have, but those lots were already broken up, and they were just 5-acre lots that somebody sold. They assumed that's what they were going to put their forever home on, and I think that it's kind of, we missed an opportunity in the comp plan to make sure that what's happening didn't happen, and here we are.
Discussed it a lot.
And that's why we needed to review it
right.
at the end of 1 year.
Yeah.
So, but the policy that I always have heard that you were supporting was if there was an existing subdivision, that we wouldn't allow a lot split there. This doesn't fit that.
And I understand that, Mike, but I think that also, just because, it's one of those just because, but within that specific little area, the people who lived there and the people who bought there did so with the understanding, and I don't think that any of them thought that all of a sudden they were going to say, oh, now I can sell half of my property. They built their homes kind of centered in and all those things, or they offset it. However they did it, they made all of their plans to include the applicant because there was a barn sitting in the middle of it. So obviously the intent and the plan all along was for it to be on 5 acres. Well, we, in our infinite wisdom, decided we'd said, oh, you can do 2.5 acres now. And somebody took the opportunity to say, oh, I can make a profit. So I can split off mine, turn it into 2.5, and make some money off of it now. Well, that's cool, but that's 5 acres. I mean, I can understand if it were 20 acres, if it were 50 acres, if it were 100 acres, to begin to say, okay, I might make this decision to do this. But to do it with that tiny little thing that a group of people and a group of our taxpayers and residents thought that they could trust that this is what they had, this was what their homestead would be. And now we're taking that away from, especially the adjoining property owners who are right there, immediately impacted.
And I can completely understand. I support your idea about the subdivision, so I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. And I understand how they feel, but on the other side of that is the people that own the property, and it is their property.
Right, I get you. I mean,
Are you saying it doesn't fit, Mike, because it's technically not a platted lot in a subdivision?
Well, it's not a subdivision.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying is you have kind of 2 types of these 5-acre neighborhoods. Some are platted lots and some are just tract land. So it's
Well, the policy
the
we had
same
been
thing.
visiting about was
well, I understand that. I'm
because I don't think even in the planning and zoning, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even know if there's a proposal other than the subdivision proposal that's being proposed.
No, that,
That's the proposal that's on the table.
That's why
So-
things come before us to make decisions whether or not it's in the best interest of.
But what I'm struggling with is we got to think through is if we make a decision here, we're affecting the entire county. We're affecting everybody down south that's trying to do subdivision lot splits, and it's hard to put. It's hard to really. It's going to be something to be very careful with how you craft that decision, because we have a lot of folks that are that are already in the process of thinking about building and doing lot splits with the rules we have now.
well,
On their own property that they're sitting on with their house in the middle of it?
and
On
I'm
5
crafting.
acres?
Well, I'm
my
not saying
decision.
how the configuration of the property is, but there's a lot of lot split consideration.
Okay. Jeff, do you have something?
I was just going to say I'm crafting my decision on this based on the majority of the information and what people have reached out to me and said that what they want. So
And Mike, I understand, because as I've told you all before up here, this is one time we come to vote I struggle with, because when a person owns their land, but I also look at the surrounding things, and I think a lot of these things you have to do on each one on its own. But I've struggled with this also. I'm hoping we can clean some things up as time goes by.
Well, I do know that if we do it in an arbitrary and capricious manner, then they can take it across the street to the judge, and they can, which we shouldn't do, because that.
Well, but that's all right. And there's a bigger badge than us. But if that's the way it goes down, whatever, there's always something else you can do, and that's what the system's for, and that's what they feel. If that's the way it goes, that's what they should do. That's what they feel.
But on the overall policy, we're trying to come out like this subdivision. This is how we kind of get these things under control, is to come to these new policies. But on this specific one, I'm struggling to figure out how it fits.
And I understand what you're saying. I'm just speaking for myself that from the beginning, from the very beginning, I was opposed to the rezone.
Yeah.
I voted no, and it was for that. It was for the reason that I have continued to not be supportive of what we were doing. So for me, I have not changed my position. My position has remained the same from the get-go. So it has really nothing to do with the specific. It is, and I would have voted no for anyone within those types of circumstances to come to us and say, I want to rezone my property from 5 acres to 2.5, my 5 acres, and then all the surrounding people in the neighborhood come to us with a petition saying, we don't want this, which is what we were dealing with. We had a valid petition.
And just like Mike said, each one of these is based on its own situation. Everyone's unique almost, but I'm not talking about people reaching out to me just in that neighborhood. I'm talking about county-wide.
Right,
People have reached out to me saying
Well,
that
I've
live
heard a
in
lot
5
about
acre
the
neighborhoods.
ag land. Is what I've been hearing a lot, is protecting some of our contiguous
You're hearing
large
it from
tracts.
people who don't own much, do they?
Well, some of them do.
Do they? Well, then they can
So-
protect their ag land.
Well, I'm just saying what I've been hearing, but I think it's a real balancing act on these type of things.
I agree, but
I
I'm
agree
just
with
saying
that.
I'm just saying I have been very consistent, and it's.
Yeah.
But I completely understand how the neighbors feel. I understand how neighbors feel if, like when we lived on Stillwell Road, we were the only people, and then within 5 years, we had lots of neighbors, lots of houses. But that's their land. They bought the land.
Right.
They built the house. So,
Were you on 5 down there or 10?
well, we had a 10-acre.
That's what I
but
said. There was a bunch of-
5 and 10 acres.
There was a
out there.
bunch of 10-acre tracts in that
Yeah.
area that people don't
Most of them were
like.
5s, but there
Right.
were some 10s.
There was a lot of 10s down there in that Sherman Township. And that's where I heard the most complaints about. We couldn't take care of it. So.
Okay. Any more on this? Does anybody? It's been voted down. Does anybody want to bring it back? I'm going to vote on it. If I don't see any, then this one from Gray's Corner is denied. And we will move on. Former board action, consider a motion to appoint a member of the NEKCAP Board of Directors. Mark?
Commissioners, I had circulated this and brought it up last week about the potential for the Board of County Commissioners to appoint one of you to this group. Commissioner Cause is the only one that reached out and had any interest. So if the board would like to consider appointing her to the North, I think it stands for
ECAP.
Northeast Kansas, and I'm not sure the capital.
Education.
So, anyways,
Community Action Program.
yes, that's it. If you'd like to consider appointing Commissioner Cause, I think she had said that she was interested.
Hope you don't have too much on your plate.
I,
You can handle it?
I've done things with kneecap in the
Okay.
past. In my
Yeah, I know
past
you
life,
have,
so
but
it's
I know
like-
you just took some other things on.
Well,
So,
I
but
can do this one,
if
then I'm
you're
done.
if you're comfortable with it, I'm very comfortable with it.
Unless somebody
So,
else wants to do it, I don't
uh,
know. Mike, are you interested in?
No. Not the,
Because I know that education and things are kind of something that you have a.
No, not.
Well,
Not
then,
at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Commissioner Vicki Cause to the Northeast Kansas CAP Board of Directors.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? I'll call the roll. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cause?
Aye.
I'm voting aye.
Aye.
Mr. Smith. Okay. Very good. All right. Consider a motion to transfer $38,526.65 to the Register of Deeds Tech Fund. Good morning.
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 Hey,
Good
Terry.
morning, Chairman Smith, Commissioners. I come before you this morning for the very same request that I voiced last February when I presented you my vision for the Register of Deeds office. Got many compliments from how organized and prepared that statement was before you. Many of you complimented it. I talked again about this during the budget review. So I've made my intentions very clear all along. I raised research and copy fees so that those additional funds would accelerate our document availability and clarity. My plan was very successful. I gave you a report that compared the prior 13-year average in that account to my first year. So this is not a request for new money from the county. There's no impact to the overall budget. I'm simply asking for the excess accumulated funds over the budgeted $24,000 to be transferred from my ROD budget into my ROD Tech budget. I took a lot of heat last year when I increased these fees in order to advance the legibility and the quality of the documents in my office with these funds. My staff and I have worked very hard all through 2021 to accumulate the funds that we need to then commence the scanning project. So I'd like to formally request that the transfer be approved by the board today. And I will stand for any questions.
I have a question for Mark. Mark, what's I remember this being discussed. Where are these funds sitting right now, and if they were moved, what would be the process for that?
Commissioners, the Register of Deeds is part of the general fund. She does have a separate technology fund, which she's referring to transferring these funds to, but these are funds in the general fund. They're not budgeted funds, but they were carryover funds. So these are last year's revenues that carried over to the general fund this year. So to say they don't impact the budget isn't accurate. They do, because any reduction from revenue from the general fund has to be made up somewhere. That it's in excess of what was budgeted does not necessarily mean that revenues in general were in excess. We did have a good year in the general fund, expenditure-wise. People came in underneath what they had originally projected. But, like I think we had other elected officials from the city up here at one point in time, and I explained to them, and you all understand, we have multiple revenue streams. This is just one of them. That it came in above budget doesn't mean that all of our revenue streams did. So I'm not saying that the numbers aren't accurate, because they are. It's just that it does have an impact on the general fund to transfer these funds over. There were also some expenditures and transfers in the past out of the technology fund that weren't completed. Not that they needed to be, but that typically they would have been. So there's kind of a double impact here. And when this was brought up during the budget, the conversation was 2021's budget is set. Whether the revenue is up or down, that's what we do. But in 2022, the board authorized that these fees that are being charged stay in the tech fund for 2022. So that is that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it, is that what was budgeted for in 2021 and what was anticipated at the end of 2021 is what has occurred. This is a new request, not an old request, for the board to consider.
So would the request should have been made at the end of the year and not transferred it to the general fund?
Again, because these are revenues, and there's a difference between revenues and expenditures. If you have a budgeted expenditure, and for some reason you're going to come in below budget, maybe you didn't get a chance to purchase an item that you had anticipated with supply chain shortages, or maybe other reasons why you didn't expend 100% of your budget. Those are the amounts that at the end of the year we can transfer then into reserves. So reduction in expenditures. Revenues are not that way. You don't, in the same year that the revenue comes in, you do not budget excessive revenue for a transfer. The following year, which is this year, this would be the time to make that consideration, because you go at the end of the year, you look at what your cash carryover was. So it's not it's not that this request can't be heard. It's just that it's different in that it's a revenue, not an expenditure. If these revenues would have came in short, we wouldn't have asked the Register of Deeds to make it up. And that's kind of the point. While they came in high, if they would have came in short, we wouldn't have asked to have made them up either. So it's kind of a mix. And this was considered last year during the budget, and the board did deny it at that time.
She sounds like she has some worthy projects that she's working on.
Absolutely.
Well, Commissioners, I actually did ask for this in 2021. I was told that a board order would be included at the end of the year. I assumed when I asked for it that it would have been done. I was ill and out for the last 2 weeks of December, so it is on me that I didn't follow up while I was out sick. I just assumed I asked for it to be done, and it would have happened. It was not until last week that I found out that this request was denied, and so that is why I'm coming before you right now. I did ask and thought I had made the arrangements for the excess funds to be transferred in 2021.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mike.
I'd like to make a motion to transfer $38,526.65 to Register of Deeds Tech Fund.
You need a board order number on your motion?
I do have a board order with me.
Board order number.
What is that? Where's is that?
1001-40409.
Yeah, the board order for 1001-404-9.
I'll second it.
Motion second. Any discussion? Okay, I'll start the roll call. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Mr. Colson?
Aye.
Mr. Cos?
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you very much. I do have a board order with me. Could I give this to sign?
You just
We
leave
do
it.
those at the end of the meeting. So
Yeah.
you just give it.
Put it out there on the table.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All righty. Next item. Consider a motion to accept the selection committee recommendation to award design and construction engineering of the small bridge and culvert project to MHS. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Commissioners. Today for your consideration, we do have the small bridge and culvert projects that were part of the ARPA funds. We did send out an RFP. We advertised that RFP on our website and on Drexel. So we put it out to the greater engineering community. Within that RFP, you did have to be a KDOT pre-qualified firm in order to meet those requirements. We received two proposals, one of which did not include a cost fee estimate as we had requested within the RFP and was considered incomplete. The selection committee met and there was some concerns discussed about the number of proposals that we did receive, but we had confidence in the fact that we had worked with this firm previously with success, and we would like to move these projects forward based upon the high level of inflation that we are seeing currently within culverts specifically and just in construction in general. Delaying this and sending it back out would put it back at least 60 days, and we are in a really tight window. If we hope to get some of these put in this year, it will be dependent upon utilities. So from that selection committee, it was a recommendation to award the design and construction engineering of the small bridge and culverts to MHS. If the board has any questions or would like to have any discussion.
Commissioners?
Commissioner Culberson and I sat on that committee, and
Okay.
I don't want to speak for Commissioner Culberson, but our concern was delaying this any longer. These are professional services,
Yeah.
so
Any delay is
any delay is going to be increasing cost of the project. So
That being said, can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the selection committee's recommendation to award design and construction engineering of the small bridge and culvert project to MHS.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any discussion? None. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Consider a motion to approve and sign the annual noxious weed eradication progress report for 2022.
You want to do that, Olsen?
Skipped an item, but
Olsen
Did I?
master agreement.
Got Olsen.
D.
Oh, God, I do that
It don't
every
matter.
time. I do that every time.
I need
No,
some
we'll
new
go.
glasses.
I
No,
do.
well, no, we just needs
I'm doing that every week now. Sorry again. Let's go back one. Consider a motion to approve additional funds for utilization of the Olsen Master Agreement for professional services through 2021. I knew I'd done something when it got quiet.
I got an extra pair up here.
I don't think it's thick enough.
Or is
Uh,
it 23?
Just didn't have it.
Okay, moving right along. Go ahead.
Okay, Commissioners, today for your consideration, we do have our master agreement with Olsen up for consideration. They have been contracted with the county since August of 2019. The professional service agreement provides both public works and planning and zoning available resources to assist in design review, traffic impact studies, survey review, and engineering. Overall billing has decreased significantly from 2020 to 2021 and has trended downward over the past 2 years. This last year it had decreased by 47% despite a yearly cost increase for the cost of living adjustments made within their private firm's pay structure. We are requesting that we accept their hourly billing and allocate within the existing budget for that amount. Previously, we had been looking at about an 80-20 split with Public Works funding 80% and planning and zoning taking about 20% of the cost allocated based on the services used. Over the last year, that split has been about 60-40 with Public Works at 60 and planning and zoning at 40%. Applications that require more than a $2,500 review per county policy are invoiced back to the applicant, which does help reduce that 40% cost down. That is not reflected in the 47% cost reduction that we do see. We did not add in the reimbursements that we have received from any applicants, so the actual decreased usage is down 47% plus that amount. I would attribute that to the firm being familiar now with county processes. The more familiar they become and the more time that they are here and understand county processes, the more efficient we can be. They're not spending time interpreting policy, now that we have tried to establish a level of consistency, I think that's evident in some of those costs. With that, I'll turn it over to the board for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
You see our relationship with Olsen being one that's going to, like if you project out 3-5 years, it's probably they're going to be part of our mix going forward, or do you see us getting back to where we had an engineer on site? How do you see that working going forward?
Well, at this time, from a cost effectiveness standpoint, we could not be nearly as cost effective in-house as we are utilizing some of their services. Over the past year, we've averaged about $9,900 a month, or $117,000 over the course of the year. Currently, as you know, we've advertised for a county surveyor position. We could advertise in the future for a county engineer position. But if we were to bring on in-person staff, we would be well over what we are currently paying for those services. I think that whether it be Olsen or another firm, I think is dependent upon turnover within their company and the familiarity with our zoning processes and the reviews that they currently are doing for us.
Yeah.
Well, I know
I don't see us hiring this many people.
No, and they've saved us quite a bit of money.
Yes, they have.
Eisenhower and
Absolutely.
down at the sand pit and all the different.
Well, there's just no way we could employ that this kind of staff.
And we have to call on, I mean, the thing is that even with professional staff and engineer,
Still
we
have
also call on other professional services as well, and have in the past, and so.
They seem to have done a good job.
Yeah,
I
senior
don't think that
scientist. Do you plan on hiring a senior scientist?
Let's hope
Not even
not.
a
Associate scientist, we can't hire this.
Okay.
We can't get the
So with that being said, are you ready
Yes,
for a
yes.
motion? All right. Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve additional funding and the hourly rates for the Olsen agreement for professional services.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? And that's through January 23rd, right?
Yeah, January
Yes.
of 23, 1 year.
For discussion, I just wanted to add.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I think we showed the first year we used Olsen that they saved us more money than they cost us.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like,
That's why we're here
I
having this
remember-
conversation.
Okay. Anything else, Jeff?
That's it.
I'll start the roll call. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
Mr. Cos?
Aye.
I'm voting aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
And now let's come down to the one I was so anxious to get to for some reason.
You want those noxious weeds.
Yeah, I don't know why. Don't ask me. Consider a motion to approve and sign the annual noxious weed eradication progress report for 2022.
Oh, boy. This one's not going to be easy.
Yeah, so yearly, this time every year, we do have to bring forward the noxious weed annual eradication progress report. The numbers within the report are self-reported based upon the individual who is in office purchasing, the private landowner purchasing the chemical. And so we do track the usage of the chemical based upon a self-reporting aspect of it. We do have to turn in our financial records to the state on a yearly basis in order to show that we are following state statute with the cost share, basically, of the chemicals that we are providing for the control of noxious weeds. It does itemize out the different noxious weeds that are present in different townships that have been identified. I think that in most instances, if it's in one township, it probably exists somewhere in another. But these are self-reported by the property owners. So those are the numbers that the state does require. We do also have to audit and go out and look at properties that they identify on a yearly basis, albeit that not part of this report. I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Well, I've been following on these chemicals and how difficult they are going to be to get and how expensive they are.
Yes.
And we did not budget for that.
No, we did not budget for that. We are also, as of this morning at 9 a.m., under a audit by the Kansas Department of Agriculture. They're out at the shop looking at our different services that we do provide and inspecting the storage area. And that will be our number one concern, is that a lot of the pricing that we are out currently bidding is only good for 30 days instead of a year. We cannot get anyone to lock these prices in for a year period. So we are going to try to store as much as we possibly can, but we have to stay within the guidelines available for safe storage of chemicals. You can only store so much in a room. You can only stack it so high. You generally have to have a drain in case it were to leak. And so we have to follow those guidelines in order to maintain our status in compliance.
Yeah, the chemical storage room's not that big. So, anybody going to the conference?
Yeah, we have 3 guys, I believe, going to the
Okay.
conference. Alan is going to go again this year, and then 2 staff members are going to go, and I think they're going to take their, I think it's their 5A test this year. In order to
Okay, so, well, I mean, that's a good place to learn what other counties are going to do when,
Yeah.
because this is
Yeah.
huge because it's a state statute that we have to subsidize these chemicals to the landowners.
Mandate.
Some of these prices are just
They're
ridiculous. Outrageous, if they're available. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's the second thing, yeah.
but it's going to be a difficult year for noxious weeds. We need to be supportive of that and ready to do what we need to do to step in.
Keep it in front of us.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I'll take a motion if someone wants to give one.
I move that we approve and sign the annual noxious weed eradication progress report for 2022.
I'll second it. Any more comments? I'll call the roll. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Your cause?
Aye.
I'm voting aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
All righty. Thank you, Bill. Consider a motion to approve placing a 2016 Bandit XP 250 chipper on the surplus list and sell it on Purple Wave.
As I've come before you previously, Commissioners, we are trying to get our right-of-way maintenance equipment in all working order and try to be as efficient as possible. This is another piece of equipment within that area of maintenance. The current 2016 Bandit is currently inoperable. It often goes into limp mode for no apparent reason and has had multiple repairs over the past couple of years that we did document in the RPA. Primarily, one of the main issues is they mounted the electronics panel on the bottom of the machine, so anything that you do kick up as you're going down the road would strike that or get dust in it. We currently have the availability and intend on utilizing the Sourcewell pricing to acquire a Vermeer chipper. Obviously, availability of machinery is limited. We have been told by both manufacturers that it's a 12 to 18 month process if you were to order one. Vermeer specifically cited a wiring harness that has a 500-day backlog, and they have thousands of these sitting in a parking lot somewhere that are inoperable because of a wiring harness and a radiator hose that they have not been able to get them out for sale. And they do have one in stock. They have lease options and they have purchase options, but that is not what your RBA is here for today. We would like to sell the 2016 Bandit, one recently sold that had been wrecked, that had a bent frame, brought $18,000 on Purple Wave. And so this one's in better shape than that. And so we're hoping to recoup approximately half of the purchase price of a new machine and move forward with that purchase.
I'm sure you will.
Okay.
Somebody can fix this, and they'll get it fixed. And it's a good machine.
Any other concerns or comments?
No, just so how soon can you replace it?
We have it currently at the shop. We just have to determine whether or not we're going to use Sourcewell pricing or rental or lease. It's much cheaper. We explored lease options. We're going to move forward with the purchase because of the amount of savings it offers. It was $94,000 to lease the machine for 5 years, and then you end with no equity in that machine. And you can purchase it off of a previous government Sourcewell contract prior to all the inflation costs hitting for $64,000.
Oh,
and they're going to
they'll
honor
buy
that.
two of them.
Yeah, they're going to honor that cost. They don't have two of them is the issue. We could probably make money if we.
Yeah, I know. But we need this machine.
Yeah. The only issue with the existing machine that we do have availability for, and we have actually at the shop already, is that it did not come with a winch. Obviously, that would be this 2016 Bandit had a winch that helped with some of the larger logs that you can get up there.
You can hook them up at Harbor Freight for that, can't you?
That's right.
We'll figure out something.
All right, I know you will. All right.
But yeah, we do have it. Once they said they only had one, and it could be 12 to 18 months to get another one, we immediately moved to at least get it on site for rental or purchase.
Okay.
Anything else, folks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve placing the 2016 Bandit XP 250 chipper on the surplus equipment list for selling on Purple Wave auction site.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? I'll start the roll call. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
Mr. Cons?
Aye.
I'm voting aye. Commissioner Ducksmith?
Aye.
All righty. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, presentations and discussion items, these quarterly reports, information system. Come on down.
Good morning.
Morning, Larry.
Out of respect for the commission's time, I won't read the report to you.
Appreciate that.
I'll second that.
Come on.
And summarize 2021, that we came in under budget by the end of the year, and we completed it fully staffed. No major catastrophes took place that I'm aware of. The report includes a number of various projects we're working on and minor incidents that I did mention. I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have on anything in the report or in general that you may have.
Commissioners? I think some
I don't have any.
I don't know. From the meetings we've had before, I'm pretty well updated on this
You
now.
provided us with all the information we
Yeah.
need to read. We can read.
Mike or Jeff, y'all have anything?
Nope.
We just talked about the fiber optic cable not too long ago.
I was going to ask if Larry could maybe just give just a
On
brief
the
update
fiber?
on where that project's at.
Well, Olsen has done 3 site visits where they did what they refer to as walkthroughs, all the physical buildings, and looking at the paths that cabling would take place. And they generated a bunch of photographs, and we met with them, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, and went over their draft where they have all these aerial photos of the proposed lines and where they believe some infrastructure items are located, like sewer and water, as you go up and down the city of Leavenworth, because, you know, this is looping all the way out to the health department, which is a 3-point-whatever mile stretch. So they were looking for the best path they could get down that leg while crossing the least amount of infrastructure, you know, right-of-way issues and all this other stuff. And there was one bridge that they had some issues with. So they're working with KDOT to, I forget the name of some of the, this is right down Doug's alley, I'm sure, but there's certain sections in town that KDOT has something to do with, that they're trying to get a pre-blessing out of KDOT that the permit would surely be approved once the time came that an actual awarded bidder would be applying for the permit to do the work. So they're trying to get a pre-approval, but it's not guaranteed until such time as later, once we do an RFP and, you know, the actual fiber company's trying to do it, they would submit the actual permit at that time. So they're trying to get some of that out of the way. The estimated time frame is the RFP should go out in March, 1st of March. So they're hoping that construction and award could happen by the end of March or April. Construction could take place maybe by the end of April start. That's the current time frame that I was told by Olsen.
Wow. That's
I thought it was a
pretty
little slower than we wanted, but
No, I think it's very,
that's very quick.
absolutely.
They figured we should give them 3 to 4 weeks of time once it's advertised on the RFP publication site at Drexel or what have
Drexel.
you. So 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of these companies should be able to knock it out. This will avoid any winter weather. They believe that should help by having the April time frame. I think it's optimistic as well, but I choose to be optimistic and then watch the deadlines, you know, zing on by.
I'm with you.
That's the way it works.
I'm with you.
All right. Maybe we can side bet on that.
50 cents would be a good bet.
Okay.
Lunch.
Lunch? Oh, no. Doug eats a lot. I would not want to bet him more.
Well, you probably wouldn't want to win that, lose that one.
Anything else?
No? I think that's,
Okay, Jeff, Mike, and Vicki. Okay, thank you, sir.
Get a joke.
What?
No joke. I got no jokes.
Bring it next time.
Sorry.
thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Larry. Okay, next item is building and grounds. Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Okay, so quarterly report. Justice Center, we rebuilt Camus water boiler, the Cleaver Brooks hot water boiler over there. JDC project is about to completion stage. We had our final punch list. We did our walkthrough. We're waiting on one piece of glass, which if you're in the construction industry, finding glass is like the holy grail. We're waiting on that piece to come in, and then from there we have furniture being set, and then some final adjustments that I'd worked through with community corrections on some placement. They wanted some doors adjusted. They wanted glass in a couple of doors. We're going to work through just the finalizing items on the JDC, but middle of February, that building should be turned over, and we should start moving her items in, and then start our charade of moving offices around at the Justice Center on people that have called dibs on community corrections old offices. Transfer station, the building is complete. The item for a outdoor deck area, the ramp and going up, they drilled the footing or poured the footings for the deck to go up, so that we have that item. Tammy had asked for a covered area that is an addition on there. She wanted a covered porch area that the clients could come up as they went. We're working on that now. That one is as well a finish up in February. Take that off our plate. Courthouse security items, we'll start working through that. We've got about a 30-day window on startup and then completion and getting them in place. I'll work diligently with Mark as well as Garda World as well as the sheriff on handing that baton off as smoothly as possible.
Let me ask one thing on that, and I'm sure I know the answer, but the equipment that's down there now will stay down there and be used by the company we're bringing in. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We have everything from your x-rays to your metal detectors to your wands. Those will stay in place. They'll just be used by the company. They are basically just providing check-in security only.
Okay, thank you.
The big ticket item that everybody wants to talk about or hear about, I'm sure, is the Cushing building. So Cushing is moving along swimmingly. Demo is about complete. They have started building back walls on the inside. ACI Bolin has worked diligently with the Guidance Center on their area. Their walkthrough is actually today at 11:30 for the pre-bid meeting for the Crisis Stabilization Center. The K-State extension is moved into C&D. We're about finishing up with that, and we'll release that item. Those two items were released separately as bid items, as one is partially funded by the Guidance Center, and tying those two projects together could be really interesting, especially when the state started asking about, how did your funds get used correctly? Are the funds used over here or used over there? It was easier to split them and separate them. Other than a bunch of RFI questions, first floor is moving along well on Sands Construction. Third floor with Ross Construction, they had submitted they had started their demo process and working through as they were adjusting their architectural plans with JJCA out of Tennessee. The lead designer for them left. They passed off the baton to another designer on that. JJCA was working in-house still with it. The problem was their plans were submitted to the city of Leavenworth, which go to the State Fire Marshal. State Fire Marshal plans to review their plans in the middle of February. After they finish demo, they will be at a standstill. That should not hold up our area. As soon as they are approved, I'm going to request that they start on first floor and complete the area of first floor that is joined with ours before they start on third floor. Our plans for the crisis stabilization have already been submitted to the city and going to the state fire marshal for review for the guidance crisis stabilization, as it is a holding facility as well that requires them to have state fire marshal approval. We are ahead of the game on that. We are right behind them, and they have started demo, and we haven't bid the project yet. We're moving along with that. With that, does anybody have any questions on Buildings and Grounds quarterly report?
Well, you've been busy.
Yeah, you've been busy.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. Completion's the goal.
Yeah, getting it done. Mike, anything? Yeah, Vicki?
No.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next one for present quarterly reports is Community Corrections. Good morning.
Good morning, Jamie.
How are you?
Living the dream. I got really excited.
It's a cold dream.
I got really excited back there when Aaron was talking about how close we are to being done and all the people calling dibs over our body and we're not even pulled yet, moved out. But I don't want to take up too much time. As you can see our FY21 end of year report, we closed a total of 97 cases. During the beginning of this meeting, in case Commissioner Stephen asked, I did look up everyone's genders and run the stats on that, so I have percentages this time. But we sent a total of...
So today I won't ask.
Of course. Our success rate was 51% for the year, as we revoked 46 clients and sent them to KDOC. We sent 49 people home, and they got to remain in the community, hopefully working, law-abiding, and have learned something with their time at community corrections. And honestly, in terms of our gender ratio, out of the whole 97 cases, 35% were female, and 35% of the people we sent home were female, and 35% of the people we sent to prison were female. So I like to see proportionality there. The number we want to see go down is the people who are revoked on conditions. In the hierarchy of closure, the state ranks how we are revoking our clients. So if someone gets arrested on probation and they get convicted of a new crime, we send them to KDOC. We don't get dinged for that. They are understanding this person's committed a new crime. They need to be in prison if you commit a crime while on supervision. And right now we're sending an outrageous number of people to prison for conditional revocations. I mean, 40 out of the 46 people sent to prison were sent on technical violations. And those people were sent on technical violations because of cases not getting processed and the time it takes to get through the system because of all of the backlog and jury trials and everything going on. And, that, of course, takes a toll on our caseloads because we do have to have a lengthy motion to revoke filed. We can't just say, okay, well, he got arrested 4 times for, new drug charges, but we can't hear those cases yet. So the next time you have a dirty drug test, we're going to send you to prison. The state doesn't like that because then they think that the only reason we're sending people to prison and costing the state $165 a day is because this person had 1 positive drug test. They'd prefer us get the case expedited through the system and revoke them on the new felonies. We're not doing that, and it's taking a toll on our caseloads, like I said. And that is something that I expressed in my end-of-year report and will be shared at my advisory board meeting in February. So I know at least 2 of you might hear more about that in detail. I think the more data we look at, and although right now I also expressed that our database it's not accurate and reliable because they migrated all of the information from an old system into a web-based system. They stopped collecting data in April 16th of 2021. So recently I went through a lot of green files on my desk and looked at all of their risk assessments and looked at affidavits and everything on file for what got people revoked, and we'll be looking at how we can address those trends and working with all of our stakeholders to see what we can do to troubleshoot some of those issues and deal with some of our habitual violators, because we're all seeing some of the same people. And
I had a question for you. Mm-hmm. When they're getting an offense where they're having to go back to jail, the 35% or however many it is, that was the females, but is it tending to be property crimes, drug offenses? What kind of offenses is it that's getting them?
Drug offenses.
That would you say that's like 9 out of 10?
9 out of 10.
And that's too bad.
And even the difference in drugs here from my old position. It's very different. You know, we didn't see as there's a lot of opiates here, which is obviously better than PCP if you're looking at, you know, the rate of violence that's associated with some of those harsher drugs. But of course, this is also, there are some rural areas in Leavenworth, and you see meth associated with that. So I think I'm a data nerd, and I'm always looking at patterns. I was like, ooh, you know, we have ecstasy here. We didn't see that in Wyandotte. We just saw a lot of PCP all the time. And, you know, crack cocaine, and everything varies from community to community. There are different problems, different drugs, and that's geographically all over the country.
So when you're seeing those type of trends and you're seeing those type of things, are you having any kind of correspondence or, you know, with the law enforcement as far as, is there any interaction to where people are being able to interact on those, saying, here's what we're seeing, and maybe we could work together to...
Yes, so I have expressed to a lot of our stakeholders in the justice system the need for a criminal justice stakeholder meeting. And recently the sheriff had hosted one where it was court services, community corrections, all of our police chiefs, obviously the sheriff and the county attorney. And we were all kind of just discussing like how we do need more information sharing and opportunities to address trends, and we're running juvenile intake. So, for example, if a family that has a youth that potentially could be a child in need of care or delinquent and is committing status offenses or creating issues in a school district in Tongi or Linwood, and then they're moving over to Baser, and now Chief Wayman is dealing with this, and they may not connect all the dots. We're really trying to bridge some of those gaps and start collaborating, because as a system, we should not have a siloed effect, and we all have the same goal and have a vested interest in understanding each other's limitations and our data and how together, you know, we are more effective.
You know, years ago, telling my age when I was back to the police chief, there are a lot of grants. In fact, David, you probably, there were a lot of grants that were available to do exactly what you're talking about. And it was so rewarding to see that, you know, like you said, within just Leavenworth County, everybody knew the same thing. They assigned people to these cases, and an officer, your department, a place like that, and they met so often, and they had funding available to give them what they needed to make sure this has happened. We're failing when we don't do that, because we're, one city or one area may not know what's going on, and they're getting this blind. So hats off to you for what you're trying to do. That's very important, in my opinion.
Was that federal grants?
Yeah.
There are.
Grants.
And there were some state grants as
There were
well.
both.
There were both, and it was really working
In fact, they
well.
hired
There was a
extra
lot of
prosecutors.
collaboration. Yeah, there was a lot of collaboration and
In the
cooperation.
80s.
Yeah, 90s.
90s.
They hired an extra prosecutor and staff. It was all funded for 3 years. Boy, we did a lot then that time. Anyway, I understand.
Well,
what
and
you're
y'all got these grant writers, and so I really put them to work, and I was like, listen, some of this is not community corrections, but at the stakeholder meeting that the sheriff had hosted, I know several agencies agreed we needed like countywide RMS systems, so all of the data goes in one pool, and, you know, we can all see that and track that. I mean,
yeah.
Law enforcement, corrections, and the county attorneys, we all have to work together. You know, we have to trust the front line, we have to trust the courts, and we have to trust that those of us in corrections who are knee-deep in these people's lives and see them and drug test them from week to week, that, you know, we have a respect for and each other's limitations and each other's professional role, and, you know, just operating as a team to create that understanding and share data and come up with creative solutions. And I know, like you said, there are a lot of grants out there for collaboration efforts and technology to share information and create committees as well as crime data analysts.
Right.
because if you don't have a current system for information sharing, you have a lot of people with a lot of their own information, and maybe not everyone is interested in sharing that, or maybe people have like their certain priorities, and if we don't put it together and look at it objectively through just the numbers, then we can't see what's working and what's not. And also, I love data because it will identify if it's predominantly women that we're revoking because we don't have maybe transitional housing for women that's safe, or if it's predominantly veterans and we need a veterans court. And if you all ever decide you need a criminal justice data analyst, I'll apply for that too. But it is something I'm super passionate about, and I think it will help me continue to apply for grants. And, I think the thing that's been frustrating to me is before I came here, I looked at the population and I looked at the funding between different agencies across the state when I was, harassing them for more money last year. And Leavenworth is one of the largest counties in the state.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't have a lot of the same issues that Shawnee and Wyandotte and Sedgwick have in terms of crime. But for whatever reason, they don't value our offenders, and they are not funding Leavenworth County the way they should be. And It is my mission to continue pushing forward to try to get more funding to
And that's nothing new.
Yeah, I know.
Seems
to be a pattern. Yeah,
well, from the last
I think so.
meeting that we had when we were on Zoom, did you get connected at all with the Guidance Center to talk about the...
So the succession fellow, I forget his name, but I did send him a whole, I sent him about sequential intercept mapping, crisis co-responders, criminal justice mental health liaisons, and some of my, ideas as well as information.
So we have gotten that information exchange, because I think that's something that is if we can get that kind of moving and look at some funding to get you some funding for that would help as well.
Yeah. So it's been great. And I know their new director for recovery service is David Weber. He has been great to work with as well. So, everything continues to move forward.
How old is he? About?
I don't know.
My age, about?
Maybe younger. I'm not good at this. As a bartender in college, I always carded people.
I think I know. How old would you say Jeff is? He didn't work at
Walmart. Okay, go right ahead. Continue.
You're my age.
Well, that's great, Jamie. I just wanted to see if you managed to get kind of that connection going, because we're talking about the sequential mapping is something that can
that
help.
identifies all the points of interest where
Right.
people with mental health and substance abuse come into contact with the justice system, and how much that costs the sheriff as well as the rest of us who are constantly seeing these frequent flyers, and they're a risk to themselves and a liability if incarcerated. And
Incarceration.
So that's why
pretty
we're
expensive.
Okay.
Thanks, Jamie.
The prevention.
Well, yeah,
seems to
prevention
work.
yes.
And
It gets the
it
least
sounds
amount of
like your huge problem is a court backlog, and hopefully, this board authorize additional funding for the county attorney to help with that. I'm hoping you'll see some results from that.
We also received a grant right before the new year for prevention for juvenile programs. We have an open position posted for that. And next Friday, I have a meeting with USD 453 to discuss working together on that to utilize those funds. And the last thing I wanted to leave everyone with is I'm going to be leaving packets with Becky because I didn't put it in this. It's a lot, and not everyone needs that. It's just a packet. It introduces a memo from our lobbyist for the Community Corrections Association with some policy updates. It also includes a letter from the Community Corrections Advisory Committee president, who is the director in Johnson County, kind of discussing our funding crisis issues. and also the Secretary of Corrections response to us, which will eliminate quarterly reports for fiscal year 22. They're going to continue auditing us for fidelity, and they have now changed the comp plans so they're automated through a system, as well as increased training opportunities as we do begin to hire new people, because we've had such a mass exodus and all of the caseloads are much higher as everyone starts to get through and get those convictions and get more people assigned to community corrections. And I think that information is extremely important, and they're proposing, I believe it's $8.4 million of an increase just for community corrections funding, so that we can be on the same or competitive pay scale to court services. I know there's frequently, confusion, like what, you got municipal probation, court services probation, and community corrections probation. Why don't they consolidate? Well, someone asked that question, and the OJA and KDOC decided they didn't want to do it. It makes sense. We decide who gets revoked and who doesn't. Court services revokes people to us predominantly. And we have the highest level of felony offenders, and we're now the most underpaid. And we all require college degrees, and we all require the same assessments and the same training and the same evidence-based practices. And we're dealing with, again, the highest level of offender, with the most case management, the expectation and the hours that we spend programming these offenders is higher. We're also the people who have to write comp plans and validate the need for money, and also write quarterly reports and get audited for this. And it doesn't make sense, and they have asked us to, reach out to commissioners, our county attorneys, senators, everyone that we can, to get the word out. So I will leave that information with y'all, because of course if they do that, then I can hire more people, and I would love for us to be proportionate to the other counties, because it makes no sense to me that in Leavenworth County the state gave us $4.13 per offender per day, but yet right over yonder in Douglas County, they got twice our funding, and their clients were somehow worth $10 a day. And then in Emporia, those offenders were worth $13 a day. And then they're mad at us that we're revoking them because they're not giving us enough money. So
Got to keep beating on that
Sounds
door.
kinda odd.
Something
It
gives.
is, but hopefully with all the extra money the state said they collected last year, that funding will be available.
Oh,
And our local ad valorem tax refunds too.
get that in. I just wanted to say, Jamie, I appreciate you coming to Tonganoxie and presenting to the local pastors and faith-based groups about what they can actually do. But for the public, could you kind of go over the housing situation for people, the transitional housing that sometimes is necessary? And
absolutely. One of the most common models is Oxford housing, and that is when people who own properties separate rooms, or some Oxford houses have room by room, and they offer places where groups of people who are going through recovery can live and have a place to launch and work on interpersonal skills, because they're all living with roommates. Some female houses allow children, but they're always separated by gender. And each Sunday they have their chapter meetings, and they're required to do certain amounts of substance abuse treatment and community service, and they're all required to work as long as they can. If not, they're putting them on chores and community service. And that allows people to have a safe place when maybe their parents or their spouse or their household environment doesn't set them up for success. Because we only get one person And if we're asking them to stay clean and get clean and live a life in recovery, but their household members aren't on probation and maybe just don't care about this person to keep meth out of the house, they're not going to have a chance. And we really need our clients to have a place that is safe. Of course, the shelter is a great respite option, very short term, but during the day, clients are expected to, leave pretty early, and we need a place where they can stay during the day and receive services and have long-term stability. So if I know some previous churches had mentioned that churches get donated property, and a part of the rent that you can collect from people living in an Oxford house can go towards the upkeep of the property, maintenance, utility bills, and there are chapter meetings and responsibilities related to that, but there are multiple models that we see. I know, there's a ministry in Kansas City, Missouri that we refer people to, the Shalom House, a lot of transitional housing models that do work and they offer fellowship, but anything that has an emphasis on the community and the collective sense of building those pro-social ties around staying clean and being law-abiding. They drug test their own household members. Imagine coming home and your roommate's like, well, you might have gone and had a beer, so now you got to use this cup and prove that you're clean. And it's that extra accountability, because we can't be there and clients cannot be successful if they're homeless. They cannot report and go to work if they're homeless, and we see that as such an issue. And we see a lot of people get dropped off over here and then they commit crimes over here, and they have to have probation over here because they don't have anywhere else to go back to. And we could turn them into people who are working in this community. People with felonies are going to take those jobs at Taco Bell and Wendy's, and hopefully.
We need some hire. Anybody got any other questions except for Mike? Okay, Jerry, did you have anything else you wanted to? Okay. A lot of information to absorb. I appreciate you dropping off to us. County Commissioners, anything you want to ask her? Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
Amy.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
I've always been interested in it. But I know how much there is to it, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And sometimes you feel like you're in a circle.
And you never gain.
Yeah,
Never
you
get
feel like-
ahead.
We just
feel
need
like you're
those
in a-
prevention dollars.
Feel in a circle.
Yeah, I'd say the prevention is most important.
That's key.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, additional public comment. Mark, do you have anything? Okay, I'll start with David. Do you have anything? Okay.
No, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Stevens, do you have anything?
Just a couple things. Went to the March for Life in Topeka, and Belinda Katharima from Elm Grove Church was the singer for the national anthem there. There was a couple thousand people, and I think it was their biggest venue yet. So it was very exciting for her, and she has a fantastic voice. If you ever have been at any of our events, she really is a great singer. Another thing, I met with the Leavenworth County Fire Association meeting, and they had a presentation from Chris McLeod on the FirstNet for first responders, and that's where you could get the phone system that if there's a disaster like a tornado, it taps right into the line.
Oh, okay.
And last thing is in the House Committee, the fires relief bill contains, it's been amended in by Senator Tyson, the tornado relief. So it's not a guarantee, but it is the closest we've gotten in 3 years. So
Don't jump on
we'll
the
see what
messenger,
happens.
right?
We're not celebrating yet.
Thank you, Mike. Jeff?
No.
Vicki?
I just attended last night's city commission meeting.
Lansing is going through the same thing, their last meeting with the districts or wards, they call them out there, Also, I think Vicki and I will be attending the Lansing Leavenworth Chamber Banquet
Right.
this Friday. And one other thing that interests me in Lansing, I'll push this out because make sure it gets out to everybody. Lansing's doing a new park plan. They have been for a while, a couple of years now. But one of the things they're looking at that may eventually come to the voters for something to consider about is a pool. So it's a big hot topic.
It's been a big topic for a long time.
It has, but I think they're going to try to get it in the November election. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that, but I expect we'll see that on a ballot one of these days. That's all I have. Doug?
I watched the Mark meeting yesterday, and I have Basher City Council tonight, and have Fairmount Township tomorrow night. And I forgot to bring this up in admin, and I don't know, maybe Mark or David could answer this, or Tom. It's about the ag tourism grant money. Does anybody know anything about that the governor approved? It's quite a bit of money up for grabs for ag tourism, and so
we'll be looking at it.
I'll talk to Tom about it.
And I did attend the Workforce Partnership board meeting. The CEO meeting was canceled, but I did participate in the board meeting yesterday.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, we got a work session here a little bit, so if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn this one.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second. Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
Clerk Culberson?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. And
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. We'll be back.